Good morning, good morning. Welcome back, everybody. I am going to start some seeds today, and proof positive, I do practice what I preach. If you saw my zero waste video a couple weeks ago, one of the uses I have for K-cups, they already have a hole in the bottom of them. I just clean them out after they're used. I put them in flats or shallow boxes, fill them with starter soil, and then I'll tuck one or two seeds in each cup. Now I find the flats that work the best, or boxes even, are the ones that have fairly big dividers in them. These like this that have the small dividers, you can only get one little K-cup in each one. You can get a whole lot more in flats like this. So we're going to go ahead and fill these. What I do is I usually get my potting mix, and I just take each K-cup, dip it in, get it nice and full, and then I put it back in my tray. Now, if you prefer, you can take your poor man's funnel. I hate to spend money on funnels, even though a lot of times plastic funnels are cheap. Milk jug or water jug is the perfect size to put right in the top of a K-cup and fill it with soil. I find it's just as easy to just dip it in the bag and pack it down and stick it in here. So we'll start our seeds in here, and then all I really need to do after that is I generally like to use a spray bottle so I don't wash all the soil out, and mist it till everything is evenly moist. Now you have to keep an eye on them because you may have to mist them every day, but keep them evenly moist and put them in a bright sunny location. I usually spread plastic across the top to hold that moisture in after. Let me know in the comments how many of you start your own plants. I like to do everything I can to save money. Another way that is really good to save money on plant starts is if you have friends or family members who like to garden and they have flower beds or vegetable gardens. If you know anybody that starts their own seeds especially, they usually have extra vegetable plants that they're usually willing to get rid of just to get rid of them because you usually always start a little more than what you think you're going to need. So you always wind up with extras. So I've gotten a lot of extra plants from other people that just didn't want to plant a huge garden, but they had those extra plants. And you can do the same thing with flowers. If you have friends or family members who have flower beds, ask them if they've got any extra starts or if they have plants that need to be thinned out, because after 3-4 years your plants can kind of overgrow in some places, and when they do, they need to be separated and transplanted. And a lot of times friends are more than happy to give you a plant start. Back in the day, it used to be a real sign of friendship when you were offered plant starts. And one thing that would be fun, actually, is if you have a group of friends and you all like to garden, you could start a friendship garden. And that would be where you would go out and you would start a little flower bed someplace. and then all of you share starts of plants amongst each other, and plant those plants in this new flower bed that you're starting. And I mean, it would be really cute to get these gardens going. And then, I mean, you could even put little signs, little cutesy signs out that say, friends grow here, you know, rest with me, things that kind of show tribute to the fact that these starts were given to you by friends. Just a thought. Okay, now I got to grab my seeds because I forgot to bring them over here. They've been... Okay, now I have the seeds I have are a little old. I do keep my seeds for several years if I don't get them all used, because their germination drops a little bit every year. And they will eventually get to the point where you won't get very many grow. Let me see what year these were packaged. Yeah. Okay, yeah, these are from 2022. So I'm not sure how well they're going to do, but I've got a bunch of seeds. And I just want to get them used up because, like I said, they'll last for a few years, but they're not going to last forever. So I'm going to put 2 or 3 seeds in each one of these because I don't have a lot of faith that they're all going to germinate. So I just usually put them in the palm of my hand, and then I'll just pick up 2 or 3 seeds. I poke a hole in the top of each one of these, and then I drop 2 or 3 seeds in there. Okay. So see, we're just going to pick up 2 or 3 seeds between my fingers and drop them in each one. And then if they do all germinate, then it's easy enough to just pluck the extras out, because you don't want them competing for food and water, and you don't want to put them too far down. I made a couple of my holes, I made a little too deep. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's way more than I will use, because I used to put out, at one time I used to put out 250 tomato plants every year. But now that it's just me, and I do not eat many vegetables, and I've cut way back on my tomato products, especially because tomatoes can be inflammatory in the joints. So any extras that I have, I'll probably give to a daughter. Okay, and that I should have, okay, I'll just have to remember there. And you can use, now I don't normally buy ready-made markers because I think they're kind of expensive when you can just use a popsicle stick. But I think I got a package of these. They were either in something I bought, or they were like 50 cents or something like that. So I just bought them and put them back. I think they've been laying here for about 3 years. But just go ahead, and whether you're using a popsicle stick, one of these markers, or whether or not you just get a chunk of cardboard or something, label your seeds so that you remember what you've planted in what little cups. So now I am also going to start a few flowers, and I'm going to put the flowers over here because I'm a sucker for flowers. I don't care how many flower beds I have. I always think I need more. So these are Canterbury bells, and I've never started Canterbury bells inside before, so hopefully these are going to be hard because they are very, very tiny seeds. So I'm just going to sprinkle them around on top a little bit and then just kind of push them down in. As long as I'm using a spray bottle to moisten them, this should work. I'll know in a few days if it works. Usually these I would just sow directly in my garden, but I'm in the process of doing this, so why not? Let's give it a try. Then I'm going to save some in my package. So in case this little experiment doesn't work, I've still got some seeds I can put outside. And that's one thing with moving into this house. I think at one time somebody loved flowers. And I think, these are pretty little too. I think at one time somebody probably had a lot of flowers around here. But I think that before they sold the property, I saw evidence where a lot of flowers were probably dug up and transplanted, maybe to one of her children's homes or something like that. So I'm basically starting almost from scratch to have flowers here. And I used to have big, beautiful flower beds. I hated leaving them behind, but it's just how life works out sometimes. Things aren't always going to go the way you thought or the way you planned. And the best thing is to just go with it. Work at restoring your life. And understand that it gives you the ability, better mark these before I forget what I'm doing. It gives you the ability to rebuild your life just how you want it. And that's what I've been in the process of doing. I'm going to do some coleus, and I think then I'll start some nasturtium. But there you go. That's all it takes to start your seeds inside. You just spray them, get them moist, and then I will take some saran wrap and wrap over the top, tuck it down around so that when the moisture starts to evaporate, it will come up, it'll cling to the plastic wrap, and then it will rain down on all our little starts. Okay, and I am just going to make sure this is covering all of my little pots. Okay. Now I will probably just leave my start sit here for a little bit and let this soil and the seeds and everything just kind of settle in. And then I will move them to a sunny location. there you go. That's pretty much all there is to that. I do have one other thing I am going to show you if you just hold on. Okay, now this last fall I had a little oopsie and I hurt my knee pretty badly. I really messed it up. In fact, I'm still trying to get it to recover. So my typical is every fall I go out and I get my fall bulbs. Sometimes they're daffodils, sometimes they are tulips, sometimes, you know, usually it's a combination, especially if I see a new kind of tulip or a new kind of daffodil, you know. Sometimes it's hyacinths, paper whites, you know, whatever I find a good deal on. Well, normally you're going to take your fall bulbs, those bulbs that you see in the home centers or Walmart. In the fall, those all need to be planted in the fall because they have to go through the winter, have the ground freeze and thaw and so on, and then they come up in the spring around Easter time. Well, since I had hurt my knee, I was not able to go out and dig holes. I could barely walk. In fact, I was walking around, hobbling around in a knee brace and using a cane. So they did not get planted. Now, I was concerned, but not too concerned because I've had a similar thing happen to me in the past. And I know there's a particular spot in my garage that I can put these bulbs and they will get the cold they need, but they won't get to the point where they completely freeze and then rot. So what I did was I took the bulbs and decided to force them inside, or some of them. We're actually having a few mild days right now, so I think the remainder of the bulbs I'm going to take out and just put in the ground now because they will grow because they're already sprouting. They're not rotted. I did have a couple packages of bulbs that got separated from the others, and I went out and I checked them a few days ago and some of them were starting to rot. So I went ahead and forced those bulbs inside. So once you do this, within a few days, this is what you're going to get. Now, with these, what I had on hand was sand. So I use sand to force these. You can also use starter soil. I started some in starter soil when I ran out of the sand. You can also start them on the top of aquarium rocks and things like that. And those are really pretty, and that's actually what I wanted to do this year. However, I forgot to buy the aquarium stones when I was in at Walmart. Then I decided I probably shouldn't spend the money on them anyway. I remembered I had a little bit of sand at home, so I went ahead and started them in the sand. Now, what I have here, let me pull some of these out. These are daffodil bulbs. Tiny shoots coming off of them. And sometimes you'll see roots starting on the bottom. These haven't started as much as the ones that I did the other day. They had good root systems on them, but these are just perfect to go ahead and start in the spring. There. These are perfect to start in the spring if you didn't get them in the garden in the fall. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Okay. First thing we're going to do, now I just happen to have these brandy sniffers. I had a whole bunch that actually were purchased for a wedding some probably 20 years ago. And they wound up in my possession. My girls didn't use, well, I might have had one daughter that used them, but it was after somebody else had them for their wedding. Sometimes I just kind of get given things when people don't want to store them anymore. So these brandy sniffers are really pretty if you want to use them for an Easter display. So that's why I put them in the brandy sniffers. I did not go out and buy these for this purpose, although if you can afford to, you could. You could also use a really tall, pretty, a vase that's fairly big around if you wanted to do them in like a clear vase. I thought about doing some in that, but I haven't done it yet. Or if you are really poor and you don't have any money to go do this, don't let that stop you. This is an olive jar. The olive jar will work just as well when they're growing up in this. Nobody's even going to notice that it's an olive jar. And if it really bothers you, just tie a really pretty ribbon around the top of this jar, and you will have a beautiful display in a beautiful clear container that didn't cost you anything at all. So what we're going to do is I like to fill my glass containers Let's put a little more in there than that. I don't want them real full, but I want them just maybe just a little more than half full. And then you can take, oops, let me put this one in first. You can take about 3 bulbs. They're already all starting to sprout here. Take those 3 bulbs. You've got your bulbs in. You've got your soil in. Then you're going to put water in. Now you don't want to really soak these. You just want your water to go in just so it comes to the bottom of your bulbs. You want to keep this moist, but you don't want to keep your bulbs soggy. The bottom needs to stay wet, but you don't want a bunch of water sitting in here. Because you can cause your bulbs to mold and rot if you get them too moist. So you go from that to this in about a week's time. I'm kind of afraid these are going to be ready before Easter. Now, once they have bloomed, you're going to let the tops die back. After the tops are all dead, then you can cut the old tops off and transplant them into your flower beds, and they'll come up again next year. So that's really all there is to it. You can have beautiful centerpieces for your holiday. You can enjoy them until they quit blooming. take them outside. Now, with these, because they're larger and they're green, these I have in a bright location. With these, the tips are still white. So these, I'm going to put them where they can get a little sun, but it's not going to be direct sun. The minute these little sprouts turn green, then you transfer them to your bright sunny windows. Okay, and just to show you that the same thing can be done in a simple jar that most people honestly throw away. I save just about all my jars because you can come up with so many things you can use them for. So we're going to do this glass jar. We've got it filled probably about 3/4 of the way. And actually, I may just go ahead and put the water in first so I can kind of gauge. This one's a little bigger, so it'll take a little more water. But you don't want your soil floating, really. You just want it to be moist. Okay, so we're going to take our bulbs and we are just going to sit them in the top. And we actually are going to have 4 plants in this one because both of these bulbs were stuck together. And what's pretty about this is you actually see the bulbs growing. And it just makes for an interesting display. And you can group them together in groups of 3 if you want. Or you can use them as a single display. I kind of like to group them. My plan is when everybody's here for Easter, I will let each one of them take a brandy sniffer home with them. Then they get the bulbs and they get the brandy sniffer just as a little gift. You can add a little ribbon around the bottom just to make it a little more special if you want. But let me know if any of you have done this in the past or if you're going to try it this year. And just remember, keep your soil moist but not real soggy. The same way with the sand. You want the sand moist, but you don't want the bulbs actually sitting so much in the water. You just want the water there at the very bottom of that bulb. So, thanks for stopping in to see me. We'll talk again soon. You have a wonderful day.